the Mind Deconstructed, Mental Health and Wellness with Dr. Kaz and George.
I'm Dr. Kaz Nelson, an American Board of Psychiatry and Neurology certified psychiatrist licensed to practice medicine in the state of Minnesota.
I'm your podcast host, George. I'm a licensed attorney in the state of Minnesota, but I'm not here to give you legal advice.
The statements of Dr. Kaz and George are not a substitute for medical care, and our opinions are our own. If you are experiencing a mental health emergency, please seek assistance from a professional.
You can contact us on Twitter at Mind Deconstruct. On today's episode, Seasonal Affective Disorder. Welcome back, Dr. Kaz. Isn't it good to be recording again?
Good to be back.
And just a quick confession, we actually recorded this episode about 2 hours ago, and we had a problem with the recorder, and the whole thing got deleted or never saved properly. So we're here again, and we're very excited to be recording this episode on seasonal affective disorder and getting back into your podcast homes.
This episode will never match the majesty of the last episode, but we're going to give it our best.
We'll always refer to it as the lost episode at this point. But for our hot topic in mental health, I do want to talk about Dr. Kaz, and she's been everywhere lately. She's been on KFAN, KARE 11, WCCO. Dr. Kaz, you are my personal hot topic in mental health.
Aww.
I mean, how does it feel to be someone who gets those calls and gets to talk about mental health and reach a wider audience?
It's really a privilege to have this platform to be able to talk about something I care about so much, which is mental health awareness and education. And I'm really appreciative of all the opportunities that I've been provided.
What's your favorite platform?
Actually, I love live presenting, presenting to audiences in an auditorium or whatever the setting might be. I just love public speaking.
Well, it's really just cool that you get to reach a wider audience. I know a lot of people listen to this podcast, but I think a few more people probably listen to NPR or KFAN when a Gophers game is going on.
Oh, sitting up in the box with the folks who call the shots at the Gophers game was the absolute best. And I'm appreciative for KFAN and the Gopher organization highlighting mental health for a big game last season.
So getting back to seasonal affective disorder, tell us exactly what that is.
So the term affective refers to the word affect, which is another word for mood. So when you hear the term affective disorder, it's just another way of saying mood disorder. So when you have a seasonal affective disorder, that means you have disruptions to your mood, whether that's in the form of depression or anxiety during a particular season.
When the days get shorter, when I go to work and it's dark, when I come home when it's dark, obviously that doesn't improve my mood. Is it in some way just more than that? Like, I'd like to see the sun, but I don't, and that makes me sad.
So that's why it's so important to understand this phenomena, because somebody could assume that, well, it's winter and it's cold and maybe you don't like the snow or you don't like how dark and dreary it is. And so you just feel like it's unpleasant. And so maybe you're not in the best mood because it's unpleasant to be in the middle of winter. And that is actually not what we're talking about, although that certainly happens. What we're talking about today is actual biological phenomena that results in low energy, poor mood, sadness, feeling overwhelmed or helpless, and in some cases even suicidal because of the biological effects of the lack of sunlight on the body.
So how, as a practitioner, how do you distinguish it from depression then?
That's a great question. And really what we try to do is understand the pattern of the symptoms. So if somebody describes symptoms that can occur during different times of the year and related to different kinds of prompts or circumstances, then we might be dealing with more of a general mood disorder. But if we really hear a story where, yes, it absolutely comes on in the middle of late November or December and it lasts during this period of year, during a particular season, then we start to get curious about that pattern and wondering if it might be due to this light intensity issue and the biological effects on the body.
Why does this happen to people?
Human beings and other animals actually have parts of their brain that sense light. They're like little light sensors in there that occur along your visual pathway in your brain. So light goes into your eyes, helps you see. That information is processed in your brain, but a little bundle of nerves along the way called the suprachiasmatic nucleus is a little light intensity detector. And that detector sends messages throughout your brain, which then control different functions in your body.
Okay, so I have two questions that failed to stump you the first time we went through it, but I think are worth going over again because they were really informative in getting the answers. Number one is, if someone was visually impaired or suffered from blindness, would they then be either more likely to be depressed because they can't sense light, or would they be immune from seasonal affective disorder?
It really depends on the cause of the visual impairment or blindness for the person involved. There are people who have visual impairment or blindness who absolutely still have the intact light sensors in their brain. There are other people who have other reasons for their visual impairment. Maybe they were born without their eyes or developed a condition where light was not able to be taken into the brain through the eyes. And this is absolutely a topic of conversation for them about how to manage some of these body, brain, and life rhythms that light is normally a part of influencing.
Okay, and my second question was the mole man scenario but you corrected me, thankfully, and said it could be a mole person living underground. So the mole person is living underground, is never exposed to light. Are they going to be prone to problems? Because they're just mining and digging all day.
This is actually more common than you think, George, because there are people who work on the night shift or people who live or work in environments where they don't have access to windows or natural light based on their situation. So we essentially have a lot of people in our society who effectively don't have access to natural light and could be considered on a continuum of a mole person. And this is absolutely an occupational health issue for this very reason that we're talking about today. When the brain lacks this kind of stimulation from natural light in an intensity that can help us maintain mood and energy, work can suffer and one's personal health can suffer.
Now, we live in Minnesota, and so there's at least a month or two of the year where I go to work and it's dark. I work in an office without a window, and then I come home and it's dark already. Is that a problem for me? Like, is that going to affect my health?
Well, the point is it might. You know, some people may be less susceptible to impact on their mood from that type of scenario, but other people are more sensitive because we're in a region, particularly Minnesota in the winter, the days are quite short and the sun is very, very far away. And particularly if there's cloud cover, that light intensity is low. And so when we don't get that kind of stimulation, our brain misses those signals and energy and mood downregulate almost as if we're hibernating.
What should a person do if they feel like they're suffering from the effects of seasonal affective disorder?
Well, depending on the situation, if it's the kind of thing where you're really not doing well, not functioning, or if you're having any aspects of the suicidal thoughts or things like that, you absolutely need to seek help immediately, whether it's through the emergency room or a mental health professional, if you can get an appointment very soon to talk through this and come up with a plan. If it's something to a little bit lesser degree where you're just noticing difficulty functioning or difficulty with your mood, you could get a hold of a light therapy box, which is a medical grade light that is at least 10,000 lux in intensity. That's the unit of light intensity, LUX, lux. So it needs to be at least 10,000. And a good old light bulb isn't going to do it. It has to be this very high level light with a particular intensity. You put your eyes right up to the light. It might even be a little bit uncomfortably bright at first before you get used to it. But that's the kind of stimulation that your brain needs to simulate this sunlight effect.
Do you have to hold your eyes open in order to get that stimulation to the nerve bundle you were talking about?
Probably wouldn't work as well if you had your eyes shut, but you can certainly blink comfortably at your normal blinking pace.
What about a tan? Is it going to give me a tan?
Well, these kinds of lights have an ultraviolet filter on them, and you're not going to get a tan from that, which is a good thing because ultraviolet light is actually harmful to aspects of the back of your eye, and you don't want to do anything that worsens your visual health in the process.
That was kind of my next question, like a tanning bed. Would going to a tanning bed regularly help me with symptoms of seasonal affective disorder?
We are pretty concerned about tanning beds from a health perspective because of these tanning beds use ultraviolet light, which causes the tan, but it also greatly increases your risk for skin cancer or melanoma, which can be life-threatening. And so we do not recommend tanning beds to use as a way to improve your mood health. And also, certainly you wouldn't want to open your eyes in a tanning bed because of that ultraviolet light, as we mentioned, damages the eyes. And that's why actually most tanning beds, they recommend you use eye protection.
Hold on, I got to cancel an Amazon order here. Is that something someone can, the actual good light, is that something someone can just buy online, or would they go through their doctor and get a prescription for it?
The answer is both. These are available just for purchase. Some of them can be expensive, though. And so if you have insurance that covers medical equipment or some portion of it, you could consider being evaluated by a mental health professional who would be able to provide a prescription for this equipment, and that might help offset some of the cost if insurance will cover that.
Last, somewhat silly question. If I just am on my phone all day with the brightness turned all the way up, is that going to help?
I'm actually glad you bring that up, George, because cell phone screens, laptop screens, computer screens, all of this light is going to impact us, but not necessarily in a healthy way. It's not necessarily the kind of light or intensity that is sufficient for treating seasonal affective disorder. Where we get concerned about this type of light stimulation, though, is for similar reasons, because the brain is sensitive to this light, and in particular blue light from screens. As you go to use these devices before bedtime, that can be confusing to the brain and its light sensors and can actually work against your goal of sleeping and facilitating sleep. And so it's just really important that we understand that our brains do have these light sensors in them. It controls a variety of brain and body functions, and we want to understand that relationship so that we can use light to work towards our goals and not use light to fight against our goals without knowing it.
And we talked about, the sun and UV a little bit, but what role does vitamin D play in all of this?
You're smart bringing up vitamin D, because I think many people know that we actually get our vitamin D, the most part, through sunlight shining on our skin, and our skin converts vitamin D to a usable form where we can use it in our body. And of course, we need vitamin D to support healthy mood. And so in the wintertime, when we're all bundled up and we don't have that sun exposure, vitamin D can be part of the scenario too. And so we'll often recommend, in addition to medical grade light to provide that light stimulation to the eyes, that if your vitamin D level is low, that you could pursue supplementation of vitamin D. And those are two strategies that can be effective.
So if someone comes in on December 21st and says, I'm having these symptoms, are you going to assume more so that it's seasonal affective disorder because they came in December, or could it be just a normal depression?
We will work very hard to understand the pattern of symptoms and when they occur, and if they've occurred in the past at different times, and try to get to the bottom of it. But if this is somebody's first time experiencing this, and it's this time of year, and they want to try to pursue a treatment strategy that doesn't necessarily involve medication first line, then Lightbox and vitamin D is not a bad way to start.
Dr. Kaz, are we sponsored by any sort of Lightbox? Can we provide a link and get a cut of anything here?
No, we've strategically remained without sponsorship successfully this whole time here. So I would just say, if you're looking for something like this, to go to your pharmacy or look online to a reputable distributor and look for medical grade Lightbox of at least 10,000 lux.
Anything else you want to add about seasonal affective disorder? I mean, I know a lot more, but I'm sure you still have got more in there.
Yeah, I think this is a disorder that's a pretty good example of something that's real and potentially universal and related to the environment, and our brains and bodies are sensitive to these types of inputs, including light. And so this is just another area where we can strategically hack resources and technologies and systems to help support our health. And there's no shame in that. It's pure biology.
Yeah, I think we covered all the material from the missing episode. Thanks, Dr. Kaz. How did we end it last time? It was really good. Thanks, Dr. Kaz. Hopefully we can get together a little more often than we have been and record some more episodes in the near future. This is always fun, and it's always good to hear about these mental health topics.
Yes, and you can help us by getting the word out. Feel free to share the podcast with anyone who might be struggling with any kind of concerns or concerned about a loved one. We really just hope this helps.
Yeah, thanks. Thank you for joining us today. This podcast was produced by Kaz and George. Music by Paul.
He's the best.
Contact us and send us your questions on Twitter at Mind Deconstruct.